Good morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. Don't forget, check us out on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And today, we all know it's right here in Miramar. Well, we're going to be talking with two gentlemen of VAX 305. We have Mikhail Scott. He is the Director of Government and Corporate Relations for Indelible, as well as Dr. Bruce James, the Medical Director for Indelible, talking to them about VAX 305. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you so much for having us here. We're excited to be here and talk to all the people here in Miramar, as well as any other folks that are tuning in today.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Indelible and what you guys do.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, my name is Mikhail Scott. I serve as a director with Indelible, and we are actually a national management consulting firm. We're also a Black-owned firm, so we are minority and diverse in our makeup and in our ethos. What we specialize in, though, is local and state governmental work. So anything around emergency management, audit, risk compliance, any of the type of services that you might see from a Big Four consulting firm similar to KPMG, Ernst & Young, Deloitte. That's the type of services that we provide, but we provide it in a way that is really community focused and community oriented, so that when we build our programs up, the folks that need those services the most benefit and get them at a higher rate.
Yeah. So you guys have been really busy then, Mikhail, this last year and a half.
Definitely. We've been involved with a lot of COVID-19 response work. VAX 305 is one iteration of that around our COVID-19 vaccine awareness, but we also work along the lines of hurricane support, natural disasters that have taken place over the last several years. And we work nationally as well in about 9 other states right now, but Florida is our home base and our current focus.
Okay, great. So now how did you get into, this type of work? Because it's not something, I guess, that people would automatically think of. Right. You know what? It's always, we just think people come out miraculously to help us. We don't realize that there's a whole network behind it, when we need water or when we need services. Oh, it just happens to be there.
Absolutely. So my background, I'm actually a Florida A&M graduate, and I actually studied public relations. But when I got out of school, I started in the governmental space. So I worked for the Florida Department of Agriculture, and from there worked my way through working on political campaigns, as well as working within the Florida legislature and on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. for members of Congress. And so bringing all of that together, more recently with my focus in public health throughout my time at FDAX and some of the other areas that I worked in, the opportunity to work with Indelible came about because, as I mentioned, we're actually a Black-owned firm founded by FAMU graduates. And I've been following the company for some time and had the opportunity to join earlier this year. And so, as you mentioned, emergency management is not a space where a lot of African Americans are often situated. It's actually about 95% nationally of emergency management companies are white-owned and by white men. So we're definitely a unique company in this space, but we think that that's a plus for us, right? We understand a lot of the natural disasters impact communities of color and vulnerable communities first. And so understanding those communities and having individuals that work in our firm that are from those upbringings makes us much more susceptible to understanding how to approach these strategies.
Sounds good. Okay, so if you're just tuning in, we have Mikhail Scott. He is the Director of Government and Corporate Relations for Indelible. Also joining us, Dr. Bruce James, the Medical Director for Indelible. And Dr. James, okay, we see VAX 305 in the background. What's going on with that?
Yes, so excuse me. As Mikhail mentioned, we've been working vigorously over the past couple of months with different outreach efforts, and our canvas style outreach. We have about 500 members of our firm right now on the ground, going door to door in Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade County and Broward County, just trying to raise awareness, just trying to, increase education around the vaccine, trying to change some minds. As you all know, we've been hit with the pandemic, and it has definitely changed the lives of us all. It's changed the way that we view life, and it's changed the way that we've had to live life. But through that, we've learned some really, really, really key things, and it gave us some guidance as how we should process and how we should move forward in terms of overall health as a community. I manage a team of medical advisors who advise the different patients that our canvassing team comes into contact with on a daily basis. A lot of the times when our canvassing teams are out, when they're in those high traffic areas, when they're door to door, they get questions that they can't speak to medically. So we as a firm put together our on-call medical advisory team to advise those patients when they have those questions that can't be answered right there on the spot in the field. So those are some of the functions that we've brought together, and some of the things that we do to help kind of combat that hesitancy that we see so often in the field from a medical standpoint.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just about to say, we are almost going into a year and a half, almost 2 years into this pandemic now. And are you finding that people, even though we're supposedly opening up again, do you find that people are still hesitant to get vaccinated?
So yes, we have some wins. I must say that, because although we aren't where we want to be, we are a lot further than we were months ago. So we can be appreciative of that, and we can congratulate that. As it stands right now, Broward County, their residents 12 and older, they have a vaccination rate of fully vaccinated people of 63%. You have Miami-Dade County, who has a fully vaccinated 12 and older rate of about 68%. And then you have Palm Beach County, who has a fully vaccinated rate of about 60%. So when you look at that, we can be happy about that. We aren't at that threshold of 70-75% that we want to be at to produce that herd immunity that we're looking for, but that is something to congratulate. But when we nail down and we get a little bit more granular into that, and we look at the people that are being affected the most by this pandemic, when we look at who is suffering the most and ultimately who is dying the most, we see that is us. That is our African American communities. And one thing that we've learned, that we've gained from COVID-19, is that this wasn't a disease, or this wasn't a virus of a specific race of people. This was a virus of pre-existing conditions. This was a virus of people with obesity, people with hypertension issues, people with diabetes, 3 categories in which we all lead as African Americans. So it's led us to a different point. It's led us to look at this thing and say, hey, the COVID vaccine, although we need it to protect ourselves, that isn't terminal. That isn't what is going to make the shift in our community for the next pandemic. Because let's be honest, this COVID-19 is not going to be the last pandemic that we see. This is not going to be the last virus that comes about. So it's really let us add into our message to kind of start taking our control of our health and looking at it in a preventative way, opposed to, being more reactive to things that come to happen. So that looks like getting in front of hypertension, getting in front of obesity, getting in front of diabetes, and really taking control of your overall health and pushing yourself so that your immune system will be as healthy and as strong as possible once the next virus comes about.
Right. But Dr. James, I mean, as a medical director, you have been fighting that good fight for years, I am sure, with, just even in our own immediate families. I can remember at Thanksgiving, and still my mother makes 10 sweets. Everybody in the house has diabetes, everybody except for me. Yeah. And I'm just like, maybe 1 or 2 pies will do, but you don't need 10. Right. And it's just something, I don't know. It's something in the brain that we have to take control of our health. And I know you've been preaching that probably for years to patients.
Yes, and so a big part of it is cultural, right? So culturally, we soul food. Culturally, we eat those foods higher in fat, higher in sugar content. So that's why it's key for us to really take charge of this as a whole, as a culture, and say, hey, like you said, 2 sweet potato pies may be okay, not 10. So. Right. And just really looking at things and understanding when you do indulge and when you do take those steps outside of that normal healthy diet, let it be just those one-offs and not a daily thing.
Okay. Okay. So no chocolate chip cookies every day. All right. Gotcha. Um, and we keep saying this. I'm on this wellness kick now myself this year because it had gotten out of control with COVID. But I am on this exercise and eating better. That it is what we put into our mouths, and the lack of exercise or anything that we're not doing that puts on the weight. And I think a lot of times if you just take off the weight, a lot of the other stuff will disappear, right, Dr. James?
Absolutely, absolutely. Obesity definitely contributes in all to it. Obesity spills over into all of those other three disease states that plague our community.
Okay, so the high blood pressure and the diabetes and then the obesity. Okay, I'm gonna keep working on it. If you're just tuning in, we are speaking with Mikhail Scott. He is from Indelible. He is the Director of Government and Corporate Relations. Also, Dr. Bruce James, the Medical Director for Indelible. And this, of course, was a firm that was started by all rattlers in the house. So that's right, they're out there. I lived in Tallahassee for 2 years, working for the radio station up there, 96.1 at the time. But not a rattler, but rattler by choice, I guess.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, lots of friends that are rattlers. So, Mikhail, let's go back to talking about what you guys do at Indelible as far as working with different governments, working with different entities, and doing the VAX 305. You, as Dr. James mentioned, you guys have people out, canvassing in the neighborhoods, talking to people. What have you found has been the difference with changing their mindset about getting the vaccine and getting some of that herd immunity?
Absolutely. So from an indelible perspective, like I mentioned before, we do work with state and local government agencies. And that's actually how the VAX 05 initiative started. So this is actually a strategic partnership between the Florida Division of Emergency Management, as well as the Florida Department of Health and our firm Indelible. And so we started the Educate Vaccinate initiative prior to coming in the state of Florida and Virginia under the guise of Educate and Vaccinate. And so, as I mentioned, when they found out here in Florida that we were working on this initiative, we were called to action to get on the front lines in Duval County. And then we eventually transitioned down to South Florida as well, because there was a great need. And what we found to be most successful is our community partnerships. And my role, that is the key that has been a differentiator between us and other firms that might try to do similar work, is that we understand the need to partner and come in and work with communities, be a connector to these organizations, and not try to redevelop or build anything up from ground zero, right? Far too often, we see a lot of issues in our community, but we see people working in silos. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is work with community leaders, local elected leaders, local community influencers, organizations that actually advocate for public health and for improved wellness. And so we've partnered with organizations like Breaking the Cycle, which is a Black cycling group that has about 300 or 400 plus members that cycle around Miami-Dade County for causes. We've worked with them. We've been working with influencers like Papa Keith from 103.5 The Beat, and he's done several outreach events with us because we understand that the 26 to 45 age range is really where you see most of the hesitancy at this point. And so we understand to get to that demographic, we can't just set up a pop-up clinic somewhere in the neighborhood. We have to actually go to where these folks are. We have to be a part of those events and a part of those conversations. And so through doing that, we've been able to reach a lot of folks throughout our time here on the ground. And it's been a difference maker in people to see and understand that people like you are advocating for this, and also that people that look like you have taken this vaccine and are healthy and are better off for it now.
I would like to ask this question of Dr. James, because Mikhail just mentioned that I think he said 25 to 46 age range. What have been some of the reasons that people have given you in that age range as to why they have not gotten the vaccine?
Oh man,
the list of excuses are long, right?
Oh yeah, we've heard it all. And what I will lead with is we have heard a great deal of what we like to call healthy hesitancy. Let's just be honest. Our government hasn't been the most the most protective of African American community when it comes to health, when it comes to just access as a whole. So when we do hear those things, and I know I started, joking, but we do like to tell anybody that we're talking to, there is a such thing as what we call healthy hesitancy, and that's what we hear a lot of. If I had to point to one, I would say one of the biggest ones that gives a lot of people a lot of hesitancy is just the fact they like to mention the Tuskegee experiment. That's one of the biggest ones that comes up a lot. And I like to hear that one because I myself, I'm a graduate of Tuskegee University. I lived in Macon County, Alabama. So I'm very familiar with the Tuskegee experiment and what took place in Macon County, Alabama. So, and if there's anybody out there that's watching, that's looking at this, and that's your personal hesitancy, let me be one to tell you that this pandemic that we're experiencing and the Tuskegee experiment, there were definitely two totally different entities. Our pandemic, number one being this pandemic, it touched all 7 continents on planet Earth. That's huge. That's really big, and that's something like we've never seen before. And if you compare that side by side with the Tuskegee experiment, we know that the Tuskegee experiment was targeted. It was targeted for those people of Macon County, Alabama. And not only was it targeted, it wasn't access to healthcare, it was the denial of healthcare, to see how a actual disease state would take place in the human body. So those are just some facts that I like to put out there first and foremost, just to combat that, really what I like to call that piece of healthy hesitancy, because that did happen. The Tuskegee experiment is extremely real. So you can't fault people for having that. But I like to kind of combat it with factual, fact-based evidence of what this is and what this isn't.
Well, it's funny you say that because I just received my vaccine in April, and everything you just said was the reason why I had not gotten it yet. It took me, almost 2 months to make that decision, and ultimately, I thought that the reason why I would get it is because it was for my better good and for people around me, particularly my mother who's elderly, for me to receive the vaccine. But everything you just said, Tuskegee, not knowing how it's going to work, just a whole bunch of things. I was like, no, I'll just take my chances. But then I like my chances better when I'm vaccinated. So,
exactly. I mean, in addition to, I always like to add, vaccines have brought us to a place that we haven't been in healthcare before. Vaccines are really good. When we look at the COVID vaccine, this is the only vaccine that we have out right now to date that's better, that has a higher efficacy than the COVID-19 vaccine, is the measles shot. So when we talk about just efficacy and just historically, when you look at the MMR vaccine that they require children to get before they start school, measles, mumps, rubella.
I was going to say,
we have a running joke. If you ask a young child what is chicken pox, they'll look at you like you're crazy. They don't know. And that's all thanks to vaccinations. Measles, we haven't heard of a measles outbreak, all thanks to vaccinations. We have a past president who died of polio. No one's talking about polio anymore, all thanks to vaccinations. So when we look at vaccinations over history, over time, we'll see that vaccines have done some really, really good things for our society.
Right.
Gotten us back up and going. So if more people want information about VAX 305 or about Indelible, where can they get that information, Mikhail?
So if anybody's interested in learning more about what we're doing with the VAX 305 initiative, as well as the VAX Florida initiative, they can go to VAXFL.org, and that's VaxFlorida.org. They can also look us up on Facebook at Do It for Florida, and on Instagram at VAXFL. So that's VAX Florida on IG. And then if anybody's more interested in the direct VAX 305, it's VAXFL 305. And you can go on the VAX Florida website and see some really good information about where you can go and get your actual vaccination. Also, we've got a lot of great questions on there, frequently asked questions that people have about the different vaccines that are available, as well as kind of learning some of the different things that we've been doing on the journey since we started. So, we're really excited to be here. But what I will say, Tamara, similar to what you mentioned, as a closing, you said that you were waiting, right? That you were waiting to kind of see and waiting to figure it out. Well, for anybody that's still out there waiting, we really want to strongly recommend that you don't continue to put that off, because the reality is when we wait, we miss out, right? And that's similar to anything else in life. And currently, we're engaged with the Florida Division of Emergency Management. However, we are aware that our initiative will likely be ending at the end of June, as well as the Division of Emergency Management's shift away from access to pop-up clinics across the state of Florida. And that's related to the fact that so many people are waiting, that you have vaccination clinics that have been set up by the state of Florida, that funding has been put there, strategically near Black and Brown communities, but you might have 3,000 shots available and only 160 people are showing up, right? Wow. And so when you look across the country and you look across the world, there is an extreme need outside of the US for these vaccines. And as we continue to go down this path, different states will start to reallocate these funds. And also different states will determine, hey, we don't need this anymore. We're not in the state. We want to be back to normal. Or if you look around Florida, a lot of times there's no masks, clubs are opening up, lounges, concerts are starting to happen again. But we're not out of this pandemic. And so we strongly, strongly encourage people, check us out, vaxflorida.org, to find out where you can get vaccinated, and make sure that you prioritize that, because what we don't want to end up is having an endemic in the Black community where everyone around us is vaccinated and protected. And then once again, we're on the short end of the stick.
I love that. That's enough to end it on right there. Mikhail Scott, the Director of Government and Corporate Relations for Indelible. Also, Dr. Bruce James, the Medical Director for Indelible. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Again, if you want more information on any of this, vaxfl.org. That's vaxfl.org. Find out where you can get your vaccination. And it's free, which is even better. I'm like,
it's free, but it won't be forever.
Yes.
Okay. Exactly. And then you have to have insurance, or then you have to pay out, the wazoo to get it. So we have free vaccinations right now. So go to vaxfl.org to find out more information where you can go get vaccinated. Also do it for Florida on Facebook, or VaxFL on IG. Thank you all so much for being with us, and good luck. I hope it gets to be up to 100%. I know we're in the 60s now, 60%. Right. But 100% of Floridians will be vaccinated, and that we can try to get back to normal very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks again, Tamara, for having us.
Well, good morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. Don't forget, check us out on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And speaking of the City of Miramar, we have two of the hardest working employees in the City of Miramar, because they are over two very important departments in the city. We have Anthony Collins, our Director of Public Works, and also Roy Virgin, our Director of Utilities. And they are here today to talk to us about the Smart City Awards, because obviously the City of Miramar is very smart. So welcome to the show again, gentlemen. So happy to have you once again.
Thank you.
No problem. So let's get started with what the Smart City Awards are all about. Roy, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, the Smart City Award is to look at areas that the city are using or doing that encompasses the latest technology to improve effectiveness and efficiency. And from a utility standpoint, we have implemented our smart meters, if you will, in which we are able to read our water meters from one location without going to the homes as we were in the past. We're not fully there yet, but we are about 93% ready. What also will happen is that residents will be able to access this on an app in their phone to see what their consumption is. And in that way, they can know whether they are using too much water, whether there's a leak, whether there's something that they need to report to us. And that is very, very important to not only to the city, but more importantly to the residents. So we're at the cutting edge of this kind of technology.
And Miramar always is. So we won the 2021 Smart City Award winner, recognizing the 50 best examples of smart cities at work this year by highlighting specific projects with real municipal scale results. So now, Anthony, Roy just told us about what utilities is doing. What about public works and how they were able to help us win this award for the city?
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. So the Public Works Department is challenged with a number of initiatives. And, one of the initiatives that we undertook a couple of years ago was to look at our street light and our energy consumption. The city had embarked upon a program to introduce the LED lighting system as part of a green initiative. That project has been extremely successful. We're partnering with the Florida FPNL to bring about the desired change. So that's one of the things. So we looked at our energy consumption in terms of street lighting, embraced the concept of going the route of the LED lighting. Our air conditioning system, HVAC system, is also a major consumer of energy. And over time, the city has been implementing a green concept in terms of upgrading and looking at our HVAC system and introducing more energy efficient air conditioning system. So those are some of the initiatives from a public works perspective. We also embarked upon a landscaping program where we look at our green space. We introduced a tree canopy count. So we wanted to do an inventory of the number of trees that we have within the city, and we started a program. We got a grant where we went around and had a consultant to be able to present a map, a GIS mapping of some of the tree canopies, which is part of the green initiative, because without the trees, and certainly may not be able to accomplish all of your green initiatives. So we have things, those are some of the measures over the last couple of years.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, just driving through the city of Miramar, for people who haven't, as Anthony just mentioned, the green initiative is beautiful. I mean, there are beautiful trees, beautiful landscaping. And I know, Roy, that you had mentioned earlier about how not only is this good for the city, but it's good for residents. Tell the people who are listening and watching right now, how is that good for them? Because we hear about going green, we hear about smart cities, but truly it helps you in the pocket, right? As a taxpayer.
Absolutely, it does. Because, and this is the way it helps us. And I'm gonna make a reference to a FPNL who has this app where you can see what your consumption is, your electric consumption. In the same way, from the water perspective, the residents will be able, and we get a lot of these complaints that there are leaks, and sometimes it goes on for days, only to find out that there was a pipe that was leaking inside the resident home, and they didn't know. And they only become aware of this when they get the water, when they get their bill.
Right.
Now, if they can catch this at the front end, they can call us or get their plumber to do these repairs. So that's where it's saving you in the pocket. Another thing that we're looking at is to do a whole GIS mapping of our underground infrastructure, which means that we will be able, right now we have a little pilot project going on, but we will be able to determine whether or not some pipes need to be replaced because of their aging, where there are leaks underground, and how we can repair those. So that's savings for the taxpayers, but also savings for the city, because we produce the water already, and to have it going to waste underground and we don't know, it's money that can be well saved. So those are the technologies that we're using. And I'm telling you, I'm very, very excited about this kind of technology, because it's really, really beneficial to both the city and, as I said earlier, and the resident.
Wow. Well, we are so happy to have you, Director Roy Virgin, Director of Utilities, and also Anthony Collins, Director of Public Works. Anthony, please tell the people who are watching here, truly utilities and public works, you guys work hand in hand, but you all are, if they don't know, I'm going to tell them, you all are the unsung heroes of the city, because you keep the city working and moving. So tell us a little bit about that.
One of the other initiative I need to mention as well is that the city actually purchased the first fleet of electric cars.
Electric cars, all
yeah,
right, EVs, okay.
And we have installed the infrastructure to support it in terms of the electric chargers. So right now, the city, well, 6 months ago, we brought on board our electric cars. So those are in full service, and we have already seen the positive results of implementing the electric cars. So that's one thing. But as Public Works, we're charged with managing the infrastructure along with utilities, the water and sewer. We're charged with managing the drainage system, the streets, the landscaping, the solid waste collection, garbage collection. And to that end, we're always looking for different avenues and different initiatives to improve what we're doing and to become even a greener city as we embark upon this challenge of become more sustainable and to be more prudent to our environment and to our customers.
Well, we certainly appreciate everything that you all do, your two departments. Thank you so much, Anthony Collins, Director of Public Works, also Roy Version, Director of Utilities. Hopefully we will have you back again very soon, and congratulations on winning those two 2021 SMART Awards for the City of Miramar. You guys did a great job. Thank you.